We are starting next session. We'll look at innovation in TVET from the perspective of policy development and strategies. May I invite the moderator and 3 speakers to come up, please? And this session will be delivered in both French and English, so those who need a translation, I encourage you to already prepare yourself with your headphones. I'm very pleased to introduce you to the moderator of this session, Hervé Marchand. He's a very recently appointed Chief of Section for Youth Literacy and Skills Section at UNESCO headquarters. And he has had a very rich experience, especially working on TVET policies and programs in Africa. He was previously head of UNESCO office in Mali, and before that he was a regional TVET specialist for Africa at UNESCO at Dakar office. So we are very much excited to have Hervé as our counterpart at the headquarters, so that he can also bring in his experience, rich experience from the field. So the moderator Hervé will be introducing the 3 speakers. I'd just like to note that in the initial program of the forum, we had Vice Minister of Ministry of Higher and Secondary Specialized Education from Uzbekistan. But unfortunately, he had to cancel his trip this time to Bonn. So, but we have 3 distinguished speakers. So, Hervé, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Miki. Thank you for introducing me. And it's my great pleasure to be here today to moderate this session. I think, and I'm sure that we will be efficient because we have a constraint of time. I'm glad also to join this position, as you mentioned, Miki. I'm quite new at headquarters, but after 18 years in Africa, I'm glad also to see some faces that I know from Africa, and it's fine to be together and to have a mix between the field and the global level. And I have a lot to learn, and it's my pleasure to learn. It's part of the lifelong learning. So mentioning that, I would like to make a special address to my former colleague who was in this position. You know him. He was at the beginning of this session, Mr. Boren Chakroun, who did a lot of things, have done a lot of things, and great success on TVET. We are very lucky that he's still with us, because now he's the Chief of Division for Policy and Lifelong Learning. And I'm sure that he will stay strongly working on TVET, and also building some links between in the lifelong learning perspective. And we saw in his presentations that he highlights the need to work from early child education to higher education. So I would like us to make him a great applaud for his work. I hope also that I will make me understandable in my English, and that we won't have to add a 3rd channel to translate my English in good English. But if it's not the case, just tell me. Now I will introduce the panel. Miki mentioned that we lost 1 person, but we still with a great panel, and you will see it when I will introduce my speaker, the speaker of this panel. We have a great diversity for 2 points, and on which I will come back after. And it's my pleasure on this panel to introduce the thematic on innovating policy and strategy for the workforce of the future. It's a key issue. I think the scene was already put at the beginning with intervention from Chaimal, from Bahrain, but also from the youth. You mentioned key points about the challenges and the need also to think about upscaling or reskilling people who will lose, for example, their job in the next year if the world continues to change, and it will be the case. So it's very important, I want to mention, because the focus is on the future of vocational education and training in line with the future of the work. So at the end, we want also to make the best future for our youth. So that is the impact we want, and that is a main goal of the SDG. We mentioned also the innovation that take care in the world, and with key issues that are newly addressed to think on the TVET system and skills development to think on and to make them operational. We mentioned that the world is, of course, changing very fast, and that is a main challenge in various directions. The world of work is not homogeneous, as you know, and there are many forms of type of work, but also thinking and many types of TVET delivery system. Beyond the formal systems, there is a non-formal system, informal apprenticeship, there is a work-based learning. So there are many forms of TVET that are under development. We mentioned, and I won't come back too much on that, there are many disruptions in the world of work. They are linked to the challenges that were highlighted before, related, for example, to the climate change. And I think this was a good transition with the previous session, with a new project focusing on digitalization, the revolution 4.0, entrepreneurship. And the overall issue that faces the world of work is were also mentioned, like artificial intelligence and the link with automation and robotics. Also the democratic transition, that is also a key issue. And it was also part of the previous panel about migration. And we, as UNESCO, we promote the right for the people, so both legal and illegal migration. So that is the main scene for the future of work. And of course, this has first, we can say, implication on what we can think and share. These issues are challenging, but also they are part of opportunities. Opportunities like with a million of jobs that may be created in the next decade, as it was highlighted in some international reports from ILO and others. And also opportunities on thinking and identifying which kind of system we can put in place to reskill, upskill the people who will lose also their job. So there are consequences of the TVET system. And one main thing I wanted to highlight is, of course, it was discussed before, the need to work together. To work together, that means between the key stakeholders on that, and mainly the government part, but also employer part and the TVET institution. And that is one of the reason this panel was put in place, and thank you to three of you. We have a representative from the government part from Finland. I will introduce him. I have a representative of employer coming from Morocco, and a representative of a TVET institution from Kenya, who was already introduced. So that is one of the reasons that this panel is quite representative. And the overall reason also that this is a great panel is that these speakers come from three various regions, because we have something from Europe, and 2 persons from Africa, but 2 parts of Africa, one from sub-Saharan Africa, from Kenya, and one from the Arab region. So it's a great diversity that will able to share their experience, because we highlight before that we know the what, and now it's to know more on the how. And on the how, maybe what is ongoing in your country at your various level, because we have policy examples that will be shared from Finland, but also practical experiences that will complement the level of the policy. So that's the main objective of this panel, to share key experience and to make us able to think about solutions that can be put in place. I'm glad now to introduce my 3 speakers. First one, at my full right, is Dr. Mikko Tamileto. I hope it's fine. Huh? Part of my lifelong learning is maybe to learn also Finnish. So sorry if I did not pronounce well. So Dr. Mikko Tamileto, you have been working in Ministry of Education and Culture in Finland since 21. So you have a great experience at this level, about 18 years. Currently, you are the Director General of the Department for General Upper Secondary Education, but also for vocational education and training. Is it right? And you deal with key matters related to, of course, vocational education and general upper secondary education policy. And this caters with initial and continuing VET, general upper secondary education, and national immatriculation examination, and also key issues related to lifelong learning, employment training, preparation of legislation, and financing of VET and general upper secondary education. You have a huge department because it is also responsible for the authorization to provide vocational education training of general upper secondary education, but also qualification structure, student selection criteria, work-based training, and also international cooperation in VET and general upper secondary education. So you are a key player from the government part in your country, but also linked to what we mentioned in terms of multilateralism. So great that you are here. My second panelist, just here at my right, is Dr. Mohamed Slassi. Your current role is mainly as a president. You are here as the president of the management board of what we can say in English, the Observatory of Professions and Skills of the Professional Branches in Morocco. And you are working in the area of forcing the human capital and skills needs of the industry, but also to support the effective response of the TVET and educational system to fulfill this demand. You are also a member of the Confédération Générale des Entreprises for Morocco, and you do the link between the employers and the public service, mainly in TVET. In terms of education, you hold a PhD in science in Paris, and you are also graduate of the École Supérieure du Commerce in Paris, and also you have a diploma in nuclear from the Institut National des Sciences et Techniques from France. What is also great is that you have managed several companies in Morocco in various domains, in energy, information technology, and telecommunication sector. Is it right? Okay. Yeah. Nice to be with you here. My third, but not the least, panelist is Dr. Edwin Tejano, who is, it was already introduced as the chief principal of the Rift Valley Technical Training Institute, so I won't come into that, but I just want to recall that you won great awards, one from the President of the Republic of Kenya, but also other awards related to your leadership in your center, and you also receive a certificate of honor You won notably the first prize of the Africa Tech Challenge, beating 39 other concurrents coming from the whole Africa. So you are very dynamic and successful in your role. I would like also to notice that your center is a UNEVOC center in your region. So welcome at home at UNEVOC UNESCO Center. And also to mention that you are a UNEVOC, a center of excellence for East Africa community in sub-Saharan Africa. So congratulations. You have a master's degree in business administration, entrepreneurship and marketing, and also a PhD in organization development and transformation. So thank you to, now I think you know them very well. We will move, because of the constraints of time also, and I was quite long, sorry, in the presentation, and we'll do this presentation one after the other. As we are only three, you will have 10 minutes, around 10 minutes. And if I have something to say, it's only to try to focus on the what, the how, but what key elements practical that will be useful for this thinking. Thank you to you, and Dr. Mika, you have the floor.
Thank you for the introduction. And ladies and gentlemen, I really would like to thank UNESCO and UNEVOC for this possibility to share our experiences on developing vocational education and training. Yes, I came from Finland, and in fact, nearly 2 years ago, we made a quite, in many respects, a comprehensive reform of vocational education and training system. And one might ask why, because usually we think that we Finns have a very good education and training system, so why do I reform the system completely? But the main reason behind that is that the world is changing so rapidly that even though we have quite robust system in Finland, it's not able to respond all the future needs and challenges. So therefore we started very extensive reform. So my aim is to describe you very briefly the objectives, why we started that process, and what kind of system we have at the moment. That's a new system. What are our first experiences on the implementation of the new big reform, because now we have nearly 2 years of time since the new legislation came into power. And to end my short presentation, some lessons which we have learned since then. So, yeah, so very briefly, why we started so extensive a reform, and the main objectives were that we need to have more flexible and more agile education and training system, especially what comes to the vocation and training. So to be able to really respond to the changing needs of both individuals and world of work, that was the key objective. And also what was important, that we really want to put the focus for learners. So in a way, I could say that more bringing the vocation and training to the learners and bring the learners to the vocation and training. So that's the idea. So the starting point is the learner, the individual student. And also what was important is to actually enhance the possibilities to lifelong or life-wide or continuous learning. So despite to have a very robust basis for vocational and more general skills and competencies, that's not enough in the changing world of work. So you need constantly upskill and reskill your competencies. So that's why it's important that the training system also supports that. Also, what was important is to make the threshold to, in a way, access the vocational training system as low as possible, especially for those who need most reskilling and upskilling, even though we have those quite many in Finland. And also, the quality issue is also very important to ensure that the vocational training is really able to respond to various needs and challenges which is faced. And the last objective was to really have a more more strong cooperation or a partnership between vocation and training and the world of work. So that were the starting points and the objectives, and what kind of systems we developed. There is a sketch which illuminates the new system, and very briefly, the core phenomenon or feature of the new system is what we call individual learning pathways. So in fact, we don't have any separate system for the youngsters or the adults, but we have one consistent system which caters all the individuals, all the customers, all the learners who needs vocational training, education and training. So that's the idea. We take the individuals in the starting point. And that means that to start with, the sketch is that we try to make the admissions to the vocational training system more flexible, so that the individuals are able to access the system when they need to develop their skills and competencies. And because of that, it means that there should be very flexible ways of doing that, because you might be person who have just completed the primary school and enter into the upper secondary level, or you could be a person with very long work experience but need for upskilling, or you could be an unemployed person. So therefore we need these individual pathways. So the idea is really find out what are the actual needs for the individual, what kind of skills and competencies you need, and what you already have. And therefore the recognition of prior learning is a very important part of our system, because it means that if you have long working experience, you probably have a lot of skills and competencies which should be made visible and recognized. So then we could really focus on those skills you are missing. So it makes the system more efficient in that respect. But of course, if you are a youngster just completing your primary school, then you have lots of needs for develop your skills and competencies. But the idea is that we should take the individuals as a starting point. And it also means that the study pathways could be very, very different between the individuals. If you are, for instance, adult and already at the world of work, then we could design the system so that you are able to work while you are studying and opposite. So for instance, work-based learning is very important. Apprentice system and these features makes that possible. And also, of course, you can advance the learning environments of the web provider, the workshops and all these things, and the digital platforms. So the idea is that the learning should be occurring there where the individuals are. If you are working, then you should be able to learn while you are working. But that is also very big pedagogical challenge for the teachers, especially because it means that most of the learning and studying is happening somewhere else than in the institutions by themselves. So that means that you have to have in a pedagogical mean very efficient and flexible system that you are able to ensure that the individuals are really able to achieve the learning targets and those skills and competencies they need. And we also have a national qualification framework, qualification system, and it's a part of this flexibility idea, because the qualifications, we have quite many of them. They are very flexible, they are modular, so it means that you can pick those modules you need which best suits your purposes. If you are a youngster, you might need the whole qualification, but for instance, if you have been already a while working, so probably you need some modules in order to update your skills and competencies. So therefore the idea is to make the system as flexible as possible. And then when you complete your studies and get your skills and competencies, which were the target, then you can enter into the labor market. And if you already are there, then you can, for instance, carry on working, or you can change your occupations, or whatever your situation. Or you can continue studies, for instance, in higher education. So in Finland, the qualifications, the vocational qualifications, gives the individuals a general eligibility to higher education. So in a way, all doors are open if you choose the vocational pathway. So very briefly, this is the system which we now have, and then some experiences which we have, and it's quite obvious that the most challenging thing is to make these individual study pathways work in practice. Because more and more the learning is occurring somewhere else than in the institution's learning environment. So it means that it's a huge challenge for the teachers how to organize the studies, how to make these study plans for the individuals, and how to ensure that the individuals are able to learn where they are studying, for instance, workplaces or digital environments. So it's a especially huge challenge for the teachers how to do that. So that was what we in a way expected, that even though we have very well highly educated teachers, but still this is a really big issue for them, and of course we have invested in developing the teacher skills and competencies. Another a bit of concern is that we have quite many training providers in Finland, and of course there's many of those who have been very advanced, so in fact they have these study pathways before the reform, and they are functioning very well, but the differences between the training providers are sometimes quite big. And of course it's a question of equity from the side of the students, that are they able to get the same services regardless where they are and what are their targets. So our aim is to diminish the differences between the quality of the training providers. But so far it seems that the implementation of this huge reform has gone in the right direction. So most of the training providers think that this reform has been very, very useful and positive, and they have, for instance, developed their processes and enhanced their skills and competencies so that they are able to serve their customers, the learners, better. But like I mentioned, there is still huge differences between the training providers. So that's one of our key issues, what we should do in the future in order to ensure that every training provider meets the standards of the new legislation. So in the big picture, we are in the right direction, but still we have a long way to go. But the training providers are able to serve and meet the requirements of the changes world of work and the students. And because of the time constraints, then some lessons which we have learned from this reform. And I think the most important thing is that it's not a question of just, for instance, of changing the legislation or they're making a technical reform, but it's a question of changing the whole operating culture of vocational education and training. So that takes time. And therefore, the reform will not succeed if the activities at grassroots level do not change. So that's the most important thing, and it means that what we are trying to do is to change the mindset of teachers as well as the school leadership in order to understand what are the key aspects, why we have changed the system, why we have reformed it, what are the added value or the targets which we are trying to achieve, and why we should change the pedagogical methods or the processes. So that's a constant process, and it takes time. But also it means that in a way we have to change the mindset of the students also, as well as the world of work. So how the new system will work, it also have effects to the companies, what kind of possibilities they have, but also what kind of in a way responsibilities they have when they are in a way cooperating with the training providers. So what is important is really that when implementing that kind of reform, it should be very long-term basis, and you have to have a commitment for many years to implement and develop the processes. And then I believe we could really achieve the target. So it's 2 years is a very short period of time to assess how well we have succeeded. Like I mentioned, we are going in the right direction, but probably within 5 years we know better how well this system will work. But I'm quite confident in that sense that, for instance, the training providers sees this very positive, and even though there is quite a lot of things to do, they believe that these are right things to develop, so it helps them to serve better their customers, the companies and the individuals. Another thing which has been very important is to have a clear and shared vision. So where we want to get, what is the target and why? You have to keep going back and explain to the stakeholders what are the target, why it's so important. And if you are able to get a shared vision, then it means that the implementation is much more easier. And we put a lot of effort in Finland to do that. So the third lesson learned is to really take all stakeholders on board. Training providers, trade unions, employers' organizations, students, all together developing the system and giving the impact on the developing. So it really increases the commitment to reform the systems. And I cannot too much emphasize the importance of the openness and interactions between the crucial stakeholders in order to succeed in that kind of reform. And the fourth thing was what I called, I don't know if it's the right expression, but what I call evolutive development. So we cannot stall the system while we are developing it. So we have to simultaneously in a way deliver good vocational training when we are developing the system. So how to combine that, it's not very easy, but it's something which we have to learn in the future because the world is changing so rapidly. So I think this is some sort of, I don't know, usually I used to spend 2 hours to explain everything, but now I had 10 minutes, but I hope that at least you get some sort of brief insight what we did and why and where we are at the moment. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you a lot, Dr. Mika Tialamento. It was very interesting. I won't summarize. It was very clear, and I'm sure you have some question. I think we will have a little paper. We have to manage the time and try to win the time of the previous session also. So I will give very quickly the floor to Dr. Mohammad Slassi, and thank you for keeping 6 minutes, 7 minutes. Sorry for that. But question will follow, so okay.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this very beautiful and interesting presentation presented by my colleague from Finland. So he obviously he's in the center of the problem. He knows the center of the problem and the difficulties of educational and vocational training. So, well, placing the human inside the system, that's important, and that's what I will try to do. And if you allow me to do so, ladies and gentlemen, well, everybody might say we should not repeat things that have been said already by my colleague from Switzerland, because he said it. We are now in a period of time where we have enormous changes, and there are enormous changes, but there are chances as well and opportunities, and we have to seize them, and then you have to transform it, you have to implement it. That's the big challenge. So, well, if we are able to understand the real needs, then we can implement it. But you have to do it quickly, because things changes quickly. So the main thing is to do it now, to start now. In order to be able to give an answer to the needs of tomorrow. We have our production systems, we have our manufacturing systems needing competences, and very often we provide the competences much too late, and then they are obsolete. Things are changing very quickly, and that might generate unemployment. And that's why I would say we should once again consider the question how we can do it and how can we prepare ourselves to seize the opportunities. Well, we all know the processes. There are processes. We have the need of the real world of work. We have the need of the companies. They need competences quick. They have to react quickly to new evolutions in the markets. So the world of pedagogics has to take this into account. And very often we do not act sufficiently quick. So that means time, that's the central notion if we want to face the challenge. And that means we have to be able to implement processes as fast as possible. It is about cost saving as well. So we have the need of competences, of skills. We have to take into account the need of the labor market. And we have the problem in Morocco. We have specific needs in different sectors of the economy. And what I understood, well, we have the needs, we have to comply with the needs, and we have to do it quickly. We have to generate new competences and skills. We have the law of offer, of supply and demand. And that has to be done in a national framework. That's what we try to do in our country in order to foster this understanding, the understanding of the needs, and that once again, that we have to generate these new skills quickly. And so you have different performance indicators, you have quality indicators, and you have to imply the companies. The companies have to get involved. We said it right before. We have to enable the people to learn on their working place. It has to be possible to keep on working and learning at the same time. So I really like what I heard right before. Then, from an operational point of view, educational training, informal training, learning, lifelong learning, all these things are very important. So that's just my second slide. So I already mentioned the different points. So efficiency of a system, that means you have to implement certain processes, planification, production, evaluation, regulation. That's what you need. And we always have to take into account the labor market is constantly evolving and changing. You have so many different processes. You have specific programs, social problems, problems related to migration. You have the professional organizations. You have the level of the state. And as for the manufacturing and the production, it's the same. And then the laws and the evaluation, that's something else. All these things have to be taken into account. All these dimensions have to be taken into account. You have so many different stakeholders on different levels, and that is not easy. That's not easy. There are many different fears, many different ideas, and you have to harmonize this. You have to motivate the people to get involved. You have to moderate this process. You have differences between regions. And that has an impact on our system. So you need leadership and you need legitimacy to mobilize the people. You need agility. And as we said right before, you have to accept failure, because any failure is the chance to begin again and to start again. And just to come to an end, all these things are very important, and we have to strengthen flexibility. We need to make our systems more flexible. So let me just say a word to how to build up a new system, take into account all the different levels. Well, if you consider the image we saw this morning, just a road, and at the end of this road, the big mountains, that may make fear, that may afraid the people. But, well, you have to build the road. If the build doesn't exist yet, you have to build it. You need the road, that's why you have to build it. And so that's that means we have to build it together. You have to enable the different stakeholders, the companies. And how can we do this? We do it by enabling the different economic sectors, the companies, to develop strategies. They have to be able to identify value-creating chains. And then this has to be taken into account and analyzed before defining new curriculums. And well, you have to sensitize the companies, the stakeholders. Any company has to do his job, and so you have a sophisticated system. You have different regions with their own policies, economic systems, and you need indicators, and you have to face the new challenges, the new dynamics. You have to take advantage of these dynamics, and then you can implement the actions you need. Well, I do not have the time to talk about the legal framework, but as for this framework, well, we have the labor market on the one hand, which is built up according to the needs. We are building the roads. We have to make visible the different professions. And we have a national qualification plan. So that's a framework in order to deal with this. And any skills are always the result of training, and that's why you need certificates, diploma. You need diploma because that's the only thing which is understood immediately and recognized by other stakeholders. So you have to label this. You need quality labels for the companies, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It was so much interesting that I cannot cut you. It was. I know that you wanted also to say other things, but I think we will take 2 questions at the end, and I will not lose more time and we'll give the floor to Dr. Tejano. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We are the last person to speak. It's very difficult to catch up with time, so I'm going to try to recover what all of us jointly lost here in front. We'll just have about 4 or 5 slices, but I'll now have to but I have to move a bit faster than I thought. Rona, can you get me the cover for... Thank you. So I will not take you into details, as I've been mentioned before. We just wanted to mention some of the issues that have been done in Rift Valley Technical. It's a center of excellence for the East African community and also a UNEVOC network member. But we as an institution, they have talked, all the people in front here are policymakers, but they usually say in English, the institution is where the tire meets the road. We are the people implementing down there. And a lot of people who have been teachers before will tell you sometimes it's a bit different from what we see in policy level. So I don't like to mention so much on issues of leadership and things that have been done before. Most of you are able to catch that on our site and our website, and many of you have come to be with us, will be able to look at that. The question of teaching processes, we talked about competence-based education and training, which is a new concept in Africa and developing countries. It has been done, but there are so many challenges that I'll be able to explain towards the end of the tail end of my presentation. We know question of flexible and blended learning, which already has been mentioned by one of our directors. The use of virtual learning centers for learning, because we are talking of access. How do you access as many people as you can? I'm very happy that in most developing countries now, the use of ICT integration is there. The use of mobile phones is also an area that can be expanded and used. At the Rift Valley, we are currently building one of the biggest virtual learning centers for East Africa. And we are already working with the Commonwealth of Learning and other institutions. But we'll be able to tell you some of the challenges we face as we try to implement some of these things. Because of time, I'll move a bit faster. We've talked of integrating of greening of TVET, and that is a very interesting story to mention. Sustainability of that is an area that I mentioned earlier. We talked about the strong linkages with industry, and you will be seeing some of our MOUs that we've signed. I'm happy that about 3 or 4 members of seated here have been to that institution, and they have seen many things that we'll be able to see. The last one talks about MOUs that we've signed with several companies, including Toyota, to do the training. And you know, the question of competence-based education and training, and the industry involvement is very critical for the purpose of learning and getting the best of the demands that are from the industry. I will not take long. Now, the question of skills and ecosystem, I've mentioned the collaborations that are there. And if you look at those collaborations, we have several. Toyota Kenya, for instance, which is a conglomerate of Toyota, is already working with us on developing of some of the competencies that are to be done in order for us to efficiently be able to implement the competence-based system. I know it has been implemented longly here. GIZ, for instance, or the German Technical Corporation, is currently working in Kenya with several other institutions to make sure that this is rolled out properly. Rivertex is actually a textile company. It is also part of what we work with, and they are able to assist us in some of their programs. The East African community, as a center of excellence for the East African community, it is critical that we work as a center to disseminate information. And the last one is IDRC and SICAN. This IDRC, for those of you know, you'll be seeing an area in which you collaborate in the presentation. This is an area that we really find very interesting, that we have managed to put as an innovation. Rift Valley has built an innovative, practical, institutionalized research and development. And I'm very happy that a good number, maybe around 10, 15 people have been able, among us here, have been able to attend the international conference. And an institution of higher learning that is technical, that is not necessarily university, and be able to continuously over 8-7 years present and have papers published in their journal is not a very easy success. I'm very happy to also mention that even Shamal, our director, just presented a paper in the African Journal of TVET, which is published by Rift Valley. So I think we are a reputable institution in terms of research for the technical education. It's called Afri-TVET Journal, and if you have time, you can go to your website and look at that. I would like to not to take so much because things have been done, but allow me to just mention, if you don't mind, briefly, the areas that we have discussed that I've been asked to mention about. One of them is the conflicts between the policy making and the institutions that we present. We come from technical institutions. We are the people, we are the teachers. We are the people, what I said earlier, where the tarmac meets the tire, or whichever way you want to put it. There are areas of policy that has been having an issue across most of the policy areas. One of them, of course, is the conflict of regulatory bodies vis-a-vis other bodies that implement institutional policies. Finland had that challenge when I met them last time in their country. How do you correlate the so many organizations that are supposed to implement new policies in Tibet? That is a challenge that we really have to work on. It becomes frustrating along the way. The second area that we think as trainers that we need to really look at is cascading of policies to the lower levels. A lot of people have policies in their books, well documented. Even in Africa and Asia, we have them in Europe. Very well documented, well researched, UNESCO-backed, and UNEVOC are validated. But we do not cascade them. So we reach the next conference, we now talk of what happened. And then we talk about challenges which should actually be seen. The third area that we need to look at as institutions, where we come from, which the policymakers happily seated with me here, is the area of lack of involvement of the stakeholders. You talk of policy, the teachers are not aware. You talk of policy, the regional governments, if you have a regional system, are not really updated, so that it becomes policy that is just said, but without really being cascaded. We need to go down and cascade each aspect from the ministry level. Can you come to the next level of government and get it down to the lower level where cascading? Where cascading here would mean the teachers, the industry, which is a big challenge because industry says, that's your story, we heard about it, we saw it in the newspapers. The last one, of course, is the issue of competencies vis-a-vis the recognition of prior learning. We mentioned about this earlier. How competent are your people and how competent are we in terms of accepting the relationship between recognition of prior learning and the industry? Last one is flexible and learning. I think because of time I may not mention that, but the last one, of course, is networking and ability for us to network within ourselves. So really, there are many things, but maybe you can share as we talk about what trainers actually go through. We talk about up in the policy level, and we expect some abracadabra magic to happen in the lower level. Those things don't work like that. I've been a trainer for 30 years. We really need a system that works. I'm happy about Finland. They were able to pinpoint and say, it's true. We are actually trying to do it. But the question is, between the implementation and the policy, how do you cascade this? At what level do you move it? How fast do you want to move it? Is it 2 years? Is it 1 year? And how is the involvement going to take place? Is it by policy, the cascading, or by training? These are the issues that we need to do that we really have to look at. And I'm sorry that time is of essence. We are talking of migration, we are talking of greening, we are talking of all this stuff. The immigrants are going to come to Europe, whether we feel it nice or not. The question is, how fast can you solve their problems? Which is a question of policy vis-a-vis practical implementation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tejano. It was so interesting, and I think it's not the end because there is a lunch after. I just want to take to stay in 1 hour of our session. 2 questions, only 2 questions to the panelists, and then invite to the lunch. So one here, and another, or one, and then to the lunch. Please.
Hello, my name is Epke Vogel. I work for CINOP, it's a UNEVOC center in the Netherlands. We are both a research and expertise center in lifelong learning. So I see actually a red line in all the presentations, and that is really on the implementation of policies at the work floor, and also the challenges of translating through teachers the new skills to competencies among students. So to what extent do each of the countries really try to diversify the profession of TVET teacher by having collateral entrance possibilities for people working in the sector, working with part-time teachers who both teach in education but also work on the in the sectors. So how flexible are our systems in allowing also people from outside with university qualifications to work and teach skills in TVET institutions. So how flexible are our systems in allowing people from sectors teaching in TVET schools?
Thank you. I will address, we got elements already from Dr. Tejano, but we'd like if you can respond to make it in the time.
Okay, I would start. Thank you for excellent question. In Finland, we have quite high requirements for the teachers, vocational teachers. They should have a higher education diploma, pedagogical competencies, but also minimum 3 years working experience. So that has been our approach to that. So we try to, in a way, attract the practitioners from the world of work to be that as a teachers. But of course, it's question of that how attractive the vocational training system is in order to, in a way, make the people make that choose to be a teacher. But I believe the cooperation between vocational training institution and the world of work is a key for that. So more they have a cooperation between them, it enables at sort of shifts between that the teachers are able to go into the workplaces to improve their skills, but also opposite sides, so that the professionals from the workplaces could be the teachers for part-time or periodically. So I think that's my...
Yes, thank you for this very interesting question. In Morocco, we have the following situation. The situation is specific. We are lacking professional experience. In the last 15 years, we have had a policy based on quantity and not on quality. And today, we have a system where we have this deficit. So what about learning? Well, we have needs that are expressed by the employers, by the branches, by the industry, be it in the textile industry or in the shoes industry or software industry. We're being told that there are going to be jobs and we need a profile, competency. So we know what are the needs in terms of qualifications and abilities. And so these needs are being expressed. So we know what the needs are, and this shows that there are opportunities because the companies are open. So we know what are the qualifications that can be learned at university, but we also know what are the demands in the professional world, because we know that the companies are deploying efforts because they know they want to deliver competencies. We know that they want to deliver vocational training. And so it is really important that we are able to develop the qualifications at our institute so that we can really meet the needs. And another criteria for success, the secret is really to monitor everything, to coordinate the different worlds. And when we keep this in mind, we can really find solutions that are relevant for the learner. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mohamed Senuslassi. I think we have no choice to continue to the lunch. It's not ended. I won't call too many things, but I hope that you got various point of view at various levels, from policy level, institutional, link between TVET system and employers and TVET institution. Thank you very much. And I think one thing I would like to remind to us is the need from all the point of view to involve all the stakeholders in the processes, thinking and putting solution in place, notably from the governmental, employers, trade unions, and training institutions. And your experience in assessing the skills, anticipating to the future of work and in terms of skills is very important, and your experience was great. So let us continue to the lunch, and I now close the session. Sorry for the constraint of time, but we're still in 1 hour. Thank you.